he got asked about Tulsi Gabbard. And the reporter, the journalist said, there are foreign allies who are very nervous about sharing intelligence with her. And he said, oh, I don't know. I'm surprised to hear it. I heard that for the first time the other day. I mean, I think she's a great American. I think she's got tremendous common sense. This woman with tremendous common sense, Tulsi Gabbard, went to Syria, met with Assad, legitimized him as a member of Congress, then came back here and advocated for him. You're telling me this woman went over there, came back and advocated for him, and she's got common sense? Our foreign allies are right to be nervous about sharing intelligence with her.
Well, she's a weird one because she has so many characteristics that you would think that everyone who's a progressive would want as a president. She is a veteran who twice served overseas, twice deployed. She's been a veteran for a long time congresswoman. She's from Hawaii. She's Hawaiian. You would say she's a woman of color.
They say she's a woman of color.
She's a very articulate, rock solid woman, and they've tried to find a bunch of dirt on her, and they can't. They don't know.
When you combine Joe Rogan, The View, a $50 million lawsuit, a nuclear roast, and legal drama, what do you get? Joe Rogan has front row seats and a flamethrower of sarcasm. And trust us, he's not holding back. Grab your popcorn because this isn't just a lawsuit. It's a roast battle with legal repercussions. Tulsi Gabbard just went full savage and slapped The View with a lawsuit so big, Whoopi's wig almost filed for witness protection.
And we'll get to that. I want to start with something that I think is also important about facts, because recently on your show here...
I was just going to get to that.
Good. Helping you out.
You want me to ask you the question?
No, look, some of you have accused me of being a traitor to my country, a Russian asset, a Trojan horse, or a useful idiot, I think was the term that you used. Which basically means that I'm naive or lack intelligence to know what's going on.
If you were wondering how long it would take for someone to call their bluff with a subpoena rather than a strongly worded tweet, wonder no more. It finally happened that someone actually took the viewpoint seriously enough to sue them, and not just any lawsuit, but a $50 million bat-swinging, PR-flattening legal monster thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, who apparently got tired of being casually tossed around by a table full of yelling daytime TV hosts like a fun fact in a gossip column.
Did you watch the episode when Tulsi Gabbard got on to defend herself and Joy Behar starts panicking and going over her notes while Tulsi is refuting everything that she said?
Yeah, I mean, Joy Behar, like, again, these people have dementia. These are people who, like, should not be allowed out of the house. They have a national platform. I mean, it is crazy. They have no idea. These people have never read, like, a book.
And there's versions of.
Naturally, Joe Rogan quickly joined this flaming bandwagon of televised irresponsibility and made himself at home. He was laughing his way through the chaos like someone who had just watched a house of cards fall apart after alerting everyone to the impending wind. With all the subtlety of a sledgehammer wrapped in podcast merchandise, Rogan tore into the View hosts as if they were a sampler platter of media malpractice.
Because she is a strong woman. She is a person who served overseas twice.
I want to let your viewers know exactly who I am.
All right.
Set the record straight. I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
We're getting a little bit far ahead of ourselves, but Franklin Graham finds you refreshing. He doesn't find me refreshing.
However, let's back up a little. The View that exalted group chat in a studio has created a cottage industry out of giving half-baked takes before the coffee even kicks in. Somewhere along the line, they decided that Tulsi Gabbard was a threat to democracy, decency, and brunch. While they were busy turning real defamation into a segment filler between recipes and celebrity rumors, Tulsi Gabbard was quietly honing her legal skills.
Richard Spencer, the white nationalist leader, says he could vote for you.
Joy, this is why
you're on Tucker Carlson at least 10 times. Why don't you go on Chris Wallace's show?
This is why I'm here, because you and other people continue to spread these innuendos that have nothing to do with who I am.
Well, Hillary Clinton started it, and then you shot back at her, boy. You called her the queen of warmongers.
You doubled down, unfortunately, you doubled down on the baseless accusations that she made that strikes at the core of who I am. I'm a soldier. Because of the attacks on 9/11, I enlisted in the military to go after and defeat and destroy the evil that visited us on that day. I've served now for over 16 years, deployed twice to the Middle East during the height of the war, where every single day I saw firsthand the terribly high human cost. It's why I ran.
While the hosts were still honing their craft of eye rolls and interrupting one another in the middle of cliches, she filed a lawsuit like an adult, a very expensive adult, the kind of adult with receipts, legal counsel, and the poise to turn passive-aggressive shade into admissible evidence in court. She didn't storm the set or start a TikTok tirade. Joe Ryan watched the case while Tulsi was defending herself, and he virtually opened a bottle of symbolic champagne. The View is like his Mount Everest of cognitive dissonance. The man has been exposing flaws in mainstream media narratives for years. He once remarked, "If you want to see the intellectual decay of public discourse, just watch The View try to discuss foreign policy like it's a recipe for banana bread." When Rogan learned of the $50 million lawsuit, he practically needed a seat belt to keep from laughing out loud. At last, someone had the guts to challenge a show that believes that shouting louder equals victory. And Tulsi didn't just threaten legal action. She also said that the rules of daytime TV don't take precedence over real-world repercussions.
Not, because she's also a Russian asset.
So
Really? I mean, this is outrageous. This is outrageous and offensive on so many levels. I've served as a member of Congress now for almost 7 years, receiving high-level national security and intelligence briefings, serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, working to ensure the safety and security of the people of this country. This is why I'm running for president, to continue that commitment of service.
He burned them mercilessly, not only for defamation, but also as a cultural joke that passes for well-informed analysis. Roger compared their debate style to a Thanksgiving family argument, but with fewer fact checks and more commercial breaks. He gleefully dissected how the show functions, taking a current event, adding a spoonful of ignorance, stirring up personal bias, and serving a half-asleep audience with lukewarmness. It wasn't just criticism, it was evisceration. Roger lit up the hosts like a bonfire made out of chords and buzzwords, pointing out how the show had turned into a safe place for baseless accusations disguised as moral outrage, as if hand gestures and dramatic pauses were considered reliable sources. He made fun of the way each host presents themselves as an arbiter of truth, when, in fact, they are nothing more than a revolving door of superficial sound bites and repetitive Twitter debates. Let's face it, Tulsi, a former congresswoman, military veteran, and someone who spent more time discussing actual policy than the majority of these hosts have spent fact-checking a script, isn't exactly the easiest person to disparage casually. She also deviated from the traditional party line, making her the ideal target for a media echo chamber that is allergic to scent.
Saw you on The View.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been overwhelming my past couple days. So I just went in there, did my thing. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who Sunny Hostin was. I actually still really don't know. So I wasn't expecting necessarily for her to kind of try to ambush me in that way and attack my character in that way.
Well, it is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies infested.
What The View did was a career-damaging job packaged in phony concern, not just a poor decision. In essence, Tulsi's lawsuit reads, "Congratulations, you played yourselves. Now tell a judge." She didn't respond with a press tour or passive tweets. Instead, she went full courtroom drama, and that's when Joe Rogan changed from a laughing commentator to an unofficial hype man. He backed the lawsuit as if it were a long-overdue public service. This wasn't just about Tulsi. It was about taking aim at a media machine that thrives on spin, lives in a fact-like, opinion-heavy universe, and thrives on superficiality. He applauded her for having the courage to do something that so many others only lament in group chats and Reddit discussions. Roger made fun of the hosts' constant acting as the ultimate expert on complicated matters, even though their combined knowledge hardly goes beyond popular hashtags. He demolished their entire working model in addition to laughing at their opinions. His perspective is more moralistic than talk show-like. Tulsi played this like a strategist, with no showmanship, just documentation, no passionate monologues, just citations, at a cosplay convention where facts are optional and volume is victory. Tulsi was busy obtaining legal standing while the hosts were busy repackaging fury as awareness, which is what made Reagan respect her decision even more. It wasn't just a clapback, it was a tactical airstrike on daytime television foolishness.
Has to be, if you average out the View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And so it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin's
You think it's deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on, for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so...
Meanwhile, The View continued to function as though it still existed in a dimension devoid of consequences, where casual comments fade into thin air. The problem is that instead of merely gossiping about a celebrity's attire or making a crude joke about a pop star, they made claims that actually had an impact on someone's livelihood and reputation. And for once, someone called their bluff. The lawsuit revealed how irresponsibly these platforms wield their influence, and Joe Rogan, the patron saint of independent media skeptics, brought attention to the entire ecosystem, pointing outrage as entertainment, fact-free speculation as bravery, and clapbacks as well-informed debate. He made a joke about the show possibly needing to hire a real lawyer in addition to their wardrobe stylist, or better yet, a basic civics tutor, because when your journalism consists of talking over your co-host and mispronouncing foreign policy terms, perhaps you shouldn't be surprised if you get sued for it. Instead of stopping with the lawsuit, Rogers launched into a humorous critique of how these shows are even produced, with a panel of hosts attempting to outrage each other, while each holding a stack of notes written by someone who once looked up current events on Google during lunch. He laughed about how the show keeps acting as though it is influencing national discourse when it can hardly discuss a subject without becoming bogged down in buzzwords.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stopped looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critical.
While the show thrived on commotion, Tulsi was icy and meticulous, with no yelling or dramatics, just a legal filing that transformed the View soapbox into a witness stand. Instead of simply walking into the ring, she carried drawings and began measuring for a new roof. Tulsi relies on accuracy, and Joe Rogan approached the entire situation as a teaching moment, emphasizing that being on TV does not absolve one from responsibility. Clapping on camera doesn't make your point worth listening to, and being concerned doesn't protect you from being sued if your pretended concern develops into a legitimate complaint. This is a cultural Rorschach test, not simply a small argument between individuals. Do you see a strong woman resisting bullying by the media, or a scrawny former politician looking to make money? If you're Joe Rogan, it's undoubtedly the former, and he's not alone. A stadium, or at least a particularly fervent subreddit, could likely be filled with the number of people who applauded when the lawsuit made headlines. The fact that The View didn't anticipate it and likely thought their studio lights would shield them is what makes it even better. Courtrooms aren't lit for drama during the day. Rather, they are lit for facts, proof, and responsibility. After the teleprompter runs out of sass, the show appears to struggle with three things.
Is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her, and they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show.
In addition to his smile, Rogers included receipts in his ridicule, pointing out how frequently daytime shows skim the surface of difficult subjects and then look surprised when someone corrects them. This lawsuit, which was long overdue, was a warning shot that might reverberate through every other studio with a comfortable sofa and a hot microphone. It wasn't a publicity gimmick. Media insiders are already clutching their pearls and reviewing their insurance policies, and the repercussions are only just getting started. To audit the oops moments, legal teams are most likely binge-watching previous episodes, while Rogan is most likely working on a new podcast episode with the topic, Why Screaming on Daytime TV is Not a Legal Defense. And this is where the popcorn gets upgraded to champagne, since the goal of this lawsuit is to breach the paper-thin barrier of media protection, not just Tulsi and a few afternoon divas giving badly practiced hot comments. Is the equivalent of suing the circus for allowing the clowns to hold news conferences. It's not just a disagreement between a guest and some noisy presenters. At last, someone is asking, are you legally allowed to be this ridiculous? While carrying a glitter-covered microphone into court, there are significant cultural stakes.
Losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us and he won, and this is and Joe Rogan believes in drag.
Tulsi's lawsuit is a message for all prominent figures who have ever been used as a chew toy for tabloids. For far too long, media personalities have lived in this magical world where being wrong doesn't come with a receipt, only ratings, and now that receipt is itemized, notarized, and attached to a $50 million price tag, Rogan is enjoying every second of it. This is the man who built his empire by actually listening to people for longer than 3 minutes while watching The View scramble under legal scrutiny. It must feel like watching an improv troupe get audited, the idea that they might need a fact checker or even someone. Now, go ahead and make your sloppy accusations on national TV. Anyone who finished a Wikipedia entry before it went live might now employ a lawyer who doesn't get their legal updates from Instagram Reels because the jokes are almost too good. The broader message here is devastatingly simple. Smear campaigns aren't just annoying background noise anymore, they're lawsuits waiting to happen. We've reached a point where saying something carelessly false on TV isn't just unethical, it's also financially foolish, especially when the person you're attacking happens to keep receipts like a tax auditor with a grudge. So yes, this lawsuit is cultural dynamite. It's turning the talk show table into a courtroom, the gossip segment into Exhibit A, and the coffee mug into a liability hazard, because when platforms this loud decide to act carelessly, someone was bound to push back, and Tulsi Gabbard simply made sure they heard it all the way in the green room. No clever segment can turn this into a feel-good story, no pop star guest appearance can divert attention from the court filings, and no amount of applause can drown out the sound of accountability knocking. It was symbolic, and Joe Rogan was more than happy to be the hype man for that message, using his platform to mock, dissect, and dance on the collapsing credibility of The View, like a man who has been waiting for this moment since 2016. Joe Rogan praised it as a societal correction rather than a single lawsuit, and the best part was that he simply laughed pointedly and let the truth do the harm without even raising his voice. Now, here we are. Joe Rogan tossed the popcorn, Tulsi Gabbard submitted the paperwork, and The View, well, they might want to look at their legal possibilities. It appears that the actual daytime drama is now taking place in court rather than on television.